All right, it's 8/10/2016, and what I'm going to talk about here with this video is the takedown of Detroit. You know, guys, as the world government is taking down America, they had to destroy it from within, and that's what they're doing now. And they have to take everything down. So a lot of manufacturing had to leave, and the car industry was so strong that they had to take that down too, and they had to, you know, have a reason for you know, taking the car companies out of Detroit and putting them in other countries. Plus, they had to have a reason to get rid of the big American cars. You know, our cars just got bigger and bigger through the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and they couldn't have that because, remember, the same people that run all of Europe run America. It's the same world government system. And part of what they do is it's an environmental thing. It's kind of odd because, you know, they do their environmental thing. They probably believe they're the real Mother Earth. But they do other things like, you know, spraying chemtrails in the sky, which, of course, I won't go into on this video. But so it's kind of contradicting who they are. But anyways, if you notice, our parking spaces are all shrinking way down. Even though the #1 selling vehicle since 1978 every year has been Ford F-150, and that's a full-size pickup. But yet our parking spaces are shrinking. Now, would that make any sense? Why would these companies all of a sudden decide, okay, we're all going to make our parking spaces smaller now? But that gives you a level of control, of thinking about how far this control goes, even down to making your parking spaces a certain size. That's how much the world system controls everything. But guys, look at the car industry through the 20s. What Henry Ford gave us there was something that was very, very practical, a practical car. People, it was fine for the time. You know, as long as it's reliable, and they weren't into styling yet. You know, they were just putting out something that was transportation. Then into the 30s, when style came around, and the 40s, and they were really thinking about style. Into the 50s, of course, Detroit was making great looking cars. I mean, a lot of chrome, beautiful looking cars. And into the 60s, and they made some sporty cars too. You know, that was the muscle car era, roughly 61 to 71. I mean, you can debate that a little bit. I mean, you had some Chrysler 300s, you had some Corvettes before 61. And of course you had, you know, the 73, 74 Super Duty Trans Am, 86, 87 Grand National T-types. You had some cars after that, but basically that was your muscle car era, 61 to 71. And but the point is, they were giving us cars that were neat cars that were exciting, cars that brought people in and said, wow, look at this car. You know, it would be typical of what you would do if you were in competition with Ford and GM and Chrysler. They're competing against each other. They're trying to put out the best product. But then something happened. All of a sudden, we have this gas crunch, right? So we have this gas crunch, and then suddenly laws were made to prevent making of these high-performance cars that they were making all throughout the 60s. They forced them to lower the compression ratio down. They did emissions and all these things, which the big three said we can't meet these emissions. We've got to drop the horsepower way down. But it should have just stopped there, right? You still should have had beautiful cars in the 70s and had top quality cars like you had all those years. And into the 80s, it should have been exactly the same. But it wasn't. All of a sudden, not only was the quality way down, but you couldn't build a good looking car. You came out with Pacers and well, just the cars in general. The Gremlin, and all these different cars that just didn't look good. The style wasn't there. Now the performance wasn't there, and all three of them did that at the same time. You'd think one of them would have had to make a great looking car. Somebody would have had to be able to not. Why'd the quality go way down? Just because the government changed a few laws and a gas crunch? All of a sudden now there's no quality in the car? The quality's gone? It doesn't work that way, guys. The world system runs all your large companies, almost all of them. There might be a handful that aren't, but they're going to run the auto industry. There's no question about that. And what they were doing there was it was just time to take down the auto industry. Remember, they got rid of your furniture company, your TV company, all that had to go away. You know, Schwinn, the bike company, American bike company, popular all those years, that had to go away. The car companies were next, and they had to take them down. So they decided what they were going to do is they wanted to get rid of the big cars, and they wanted to get people in the small cars like they have in Europe. Remember, the same people run Europe as run America, and they wanted them in those small cars. Well, how do you get Americans out of the big cars? You have to fake a gas crunch, and that's what they did. And so all of a sudden your gas prices shoot way up. Now no one wants to drive those big gas guzzling cars. And what do? So you have Toyota coming in at the same time. That's all planned out. They bring you these small cars. So they're doing an environmental part, which they want to do. Plus they're getting you out of the big cars. And plus they're taking down the auto industry. That's what they wanted to do, is take that down. They wanted to have a reason to send them over to say, we're building a plant now in Mexico, we're building a plant now in Canada, we're building a... They had to, it was all about taking down the American economy, which they're still doing today. You know, that's why our debt it went doubled from the 8 years that Obama was in office. You know, I think, what are we at, 19 trillion now? And so, I don't know, I better make sure I put the date on here. Maybe I did put the date, 8/10/2016. And so, you'll notice that at the same time, all the big three couldn't make a good quality car, and they were not good looking cars. But at the same time, those companies made great looking pickups. And the pickups went from being just vinyl seat, you know, not call them low level, but just basic transportation. I mean, some of them by 1970 were getting a little bit fancier, but they went to being very plush trucks. We raised them way up, you know, make them look cool, you know. So Ford used to call it the high boy. And so they had all the, you know, you could put your big tires on there because it's already jacked up. And the interiors had nice velour interiors, a sportier steering wheel. And all of a sudden the pickups got a lot better. But the cars became junk. They didn't look good. They didn't drive good. The motors, you know, you try to turn them off, the motors would keep on running and going blah, 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 you know, and they wouldn't even shut off. The quality wasn't there. Well, tell me how all three of those big three could do it all at the same time, exactly the same. It would never happen, guys. It would never happen. That was all planned out by the world system to take down those car companies and give reasons to move them out. And so they did. I mean, that's exactly what they did. Guys, I'm just asking you to think it through. Why would they not be able to build a good-looking car all of a sudden? Why would the quality have to drop down after 70 or 80 years of building great cars? How could it happen to all three? Wouldn't you think, well, one of them would have hit on something and it made this... It didn't work, guys. And also, during this meltdown that they were doing in the car industry, something happened. People started, you know, they wanted to buy a small car because the gas was so high. they started buying the Pinto. You know, it's American. You know, they didn't want to go to the import cars. They're American people. You know, American cars. Well, then what do we see happen with the Pinto? All of a sudden, the gas tank explodes easily, right? Well, guys, believe it or not, you can find information of reports that were going on back then during that time that they were saying that these tanks were exploding. And when you research it, listen to some of what the lawyers said and listen to some of the factual information about how many gas tanks exploded per 1,000 cars. It's no different than the regular cars, guys. That was all made up. That was all made up to get you out of that Pinto and into that import car. And I researched this about 3 years ago, and I couldn't believe all the information I found. So there were other people at the time. You know, I was really young. I was 12, 13 years old when that stuff started, I believe. But there were guys that knew at the time that something wasn't right there, and so they were doing reports back then on what was really happening with that Pinto. And guys, it just wasn't what they were saying it was. I'd say that, you know, for people that don't know the world system, they don't know that we're lied to, you know, constantly, huge lies about our food and our vaccines and our, you know, what's going on in our air with the, you know, the spraying of the chemtrails and what's in our water. We're constantly lied to. Well, Dateline, I believe it was NBC, in the 80s, they were, for some reason, and I haven't figured out why they were doing this, unless they were trying to keep Ford at the #1 truck sales, and I don't know why they would do that. But all of a sudden, they decided that they were going to go after the Chevy trucks. And so they talked about the gas tanks exploding. And they actually did a video of a car running into the side of a Chevy truck, and the tank exploded. Now, I believe at that time Chevy put the tanks on the outside of the frame rail. I think Ford is putting on the inside of the frame rail. I'm not 100% on that, but I think if I remember right back then, that's the way it was. And so anyway, NBC did that. They just showed this car hitting, and the Chevy truck exploded. Well, there were firefighters there. They were doing this on a road out in the country, and they had firefighters there. Well, the firefighter saw something that wasn't right, and I think I don't know if he took the film or somehow he went to GM, and after talking to them and showing and analyzing it, NBC had to go on the air and say that they actually set up little small explosions in that truck. There's a video called NBC Caught Lying about Chevrolet trucks exploding, and you can find it on YouTube. And so so what I'm saying is it happens, guys. These lies are deep by the world system, and it's much bigger than you think it is, guys. Now, that NBC Caught Lying, you know, I'm going off of that one video, but I thought I recall them saying back then that they, you know, they were actually caught at doing this. So I think it's legit. I'm just giving you the information. You can look it up yourself. I'm not saying, you know, one way or the other 100%. I'm not saying, you know, that they did it or they didn't do it. I'm just saying go look at the video, and it's actual NBC people, and it looks legit. But I'm not really here to concentrate on that. I'm really concentrating on the takedown of Detroit. But yeah, so how does all of a sudden all the big three can't make a good-looking car? the quality drops on all three of these companies, and all three of them start making much better pickups. You know, just like that. You know, how can that happen? Guys, it was all planned out. It was all planned out by the world system to do it. And it was just, like I said, it was just the process of taking down Detroit. Now, guys, you guys that follow cars know from like 1972 up into the 90s, we hardly had anything at all that was sporty. You know, we had the Trans Am and the Z28. You know, throughout most of the 70s. I think the Z28 ended there. I'm not sure if it stopped for a year or two, but you know, like the 74, 75, basically a Camaro with some stickers on it. It really wasn't much, you know. And you know, the Trans Am was popular because it was the only somewhat sporty car left. And I remember, a friend of a friend bought a new Trans Am. I think it was in '78. I can't remember for sure. And I had my $400 '68 GT 390 Mustang, and I raced him, and you know, my 100,000 mile worn out 390 beat him, you know, and you know, so the point is that these weren't performance cars. They had a little bit of a look to them, but they weren't fast at all. So you're going to tell me all the way through the 70s into the 80s. I know in 86, 87 we had the Grand National and T-Type, which were somewhat quick, you know, especially in cooler weather. And then into the 90s, you know, you started to get a little more power, 300 horse in the Cobra Mustang, whatever. But all that time, you're talking 30 years with almost nothing at all coming out of Detroit, guys. It's just not going to happen, guys. They would have worked hard to give you something that was somewhat sporty. And one of the things, as I'll just say, uncovering the fact that we had a world government system, there were a couple of things that really triggered that into the 90s with me, and that one of them was the fact that, you know, Detroit wasn't putting out fast cars. You know, it just couldn't happen after 30. You had to be able to catch up with the technology and be able to build fast cars with good mileage. Well, we found out that they did do that. And you know, by '05, when they started bringing back the old Mustang, and even earlier than that, you know, the LS Camaros and stuff, they were pretty quick and they were getting great mileage, so they could do it. But they weren't hardly giving us anything. That was one of the things that triggered in my mind something is wrong. You know, another thing was, you know, at the end of the Bush Senior's administration, I think the last couple of years we had a Republican Senate and the House and a Republican President, and we thought, okay, here we go, now we can get some of those things done that Republicans have been looking to do for 20, 30 years that I was following politics, you know, but nothing was done. In fact, they spent money like a Democrat, you know. I started to put the pieces together knowing something was wrong. And those were two of the things. The car thing and that were two of the things that really triggered it, that I knew something wasn't quite right. And it wasn't until '08 that I was able to figure out that we have this world system that runs everything in our world, and just about everything. Anyways, I wanted to just point out, you know, a few facts here. I mean, you can go research it yourself on a Pinto. I mean, I got you know, this thick of documents and pages, and anyway, you can't sit there and read them all in a short video. And you'll find the information is true that those Pintos weren't blowing up easily like they were saying, but they had to get the people out of that American small car and into that Japanese car. Guys, until you really start to understand that we have this world system, you're not going to understand how big this is and how far they go. And now look at Detroit, it's half a ghost town. this was all planned out for decades, guys. That was part of just taking down America. Remember, they took away Schwinn, they took away our uh, our furniture companies. Well, I think those are all gone now in America. And we got the Amish and stuff, but I guy at a sewing company or a sewing machine repair store told me that I believe it was 1988 that was the last American sewing machine made, and of course you couldn't have the auto industry is huge. There's millions of jobs. There's it fans out from there. You had to take that down also. So guys, you guys that are in Detroit and your city is wiped out and you're suffering daily because there's no jobs and the city is going broke. That's all planned by the world government system. It's been planned, like I said, decades ago. And they had to get you out of that American car. And so they did. And now you see these small cars. Go to a parking lot today. What are you looking? Let's look across the lot. All tiny cars, all small cars. Almost all. And they have no style, basically. I mean, there is some stylish stuff now. I mean, you got a few. Of course, the Mustang '05 was a good-looking car, and you've got some, the Dodge Challenger and stuff. These are good-looking cars. You've got some, but basically for 20, 25 years, those small cars were like a bubble. There was nothing, no style to them at all. Part of this whole thing of taking down Detroit was to also get, they had to take the love affair away from the American car. People loved American cars. It was something hey, look at my car, look at this beautiful, it was a big thing for a lot of people. And they had to take that away. That's why, guys, you don't have blue interiors, red interiors, white interiors anymore. You have gray and black. I was looking at a car lot, Ford trucks, at one of our big car lots here, one of our big dealerships. I bet you they had, I'm guessing here, 150 trucks on their lot. It's like I said, it's a large dealership. I actually walked around and looked into all these, I didn't have to go up to the window, I just looked as I was going by. And I looked at probably, I don't even know, 80% of them. I found 2 tan interiors in that lot, and they're all gray and black. Well, to me, that tan interior is much better looking than the gray or the black. And what does gray and black have? They're blah, right? You jump in there, it's all black, it's all gray, it's dingy, blah. Yeah, you guys, you're going to say to yourself, it doesn't go that far. They wouldn't go that far. Yes, they would. Guys, that's why you can't choose your individual options anymore. They had to take the fun out of the car because they want the car just to be transportation. That's why they were doing it. Now, why did they start the second muscle car war? Believe it or not, back then people were starting to talk about the fact that they weren't putting out anything sporty. And so I don't know if that was part of it. I think it was. But for years people say, how come Detroit's not putting anything out? What's going on with that? Plus, I think they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. And that was to put these companies in other countries. And, if you count up like the number of Mustangs and Challengers sold, compare that to the number of Camrys and all the other small Hondas and all that, it's going to be just a small dent in the big picture. So they accomplished what they wanted, and I think that's why they didn't want to look suspicious as much, and I think that's why they brought back these, the sporty cars again, and with lots of horsepower. Plus, the other reason is I think we're going to find out that they are going to do the major collapse soon, that they've been planning for decades to collapse a whole worldwide economy. So in their mind are thinking, look, we're close to collapsing in anyway. Let's put out 500, 600, 700 horsepower cars. It's going to end soon anyways. And that we won't know, until the future comes. We'll see if that actually happens. But the bottom line, guys, you got to ask yourself, why would there not be 7 interior colors available? You know, why can you not pick your individual options? They're supposed to be in competition with each other, right? Well, if you were running Chevrolet, wouldn't you say, hey, let's do 5 interior colors now, or 6 interior colors. Let's bring back the red and the blue. It'll draw people in, and let's make them be able to pick these individual options. And you know, and they'd say, then we can increase our sales as we compete against Ford and whatever. It doesn't happen, guys. You all end up doing kind of the same thing. And you know, ask yourself, how could all 3 of the big 3 all of a sudden not make a good-looking car in the 70s, and the quality went down after 70 or 80 years of building great cars? How could it happen? It would never happen. The problem is when people see this video, they're going to say, that's too much control. Guys, they control it all. That's the world government. I mean, there's going to be a few things they don't control, but the majority of everything is controlled by them, and including those car companies. So anyways, I'm going to probably end it here, and just want people to think, those people in Detroit, guys, you guys are suffering big time just because the world government decided to take down your car industry, and now your city is toast, and you're losing. You know, the city is bankrupt basically, and all because of the plan to take down the world government, or for the world government to take down the economies of the entire world, and that's why your city is in such tough shape. So, anyways, so I'm just putting out my opinions on all this, guys, and that's what this whole video is. And as Americans, I think we can still put out our own opinions. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But, and remember, guys, I always like to put this at the end of my videos. You know, the Bible tells us that John 3:3 says you cannot get into heaven unless you're born again. You know, read it carefully, guys. It's not even hard to figure out. Jesus is very straightforward. You have to be born again. And when you're born again, you get the Holy Spirit in you, and your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So accept God, ask Him into your life. Don't do it to say, oh, let's see what happens. You know, search for God. Ask Him to say, God, show me if you're real. And as He starts to show you, you're going to realize He is real. And then ask Him into your life. Ask forgiveness of your sins, and you'll be born again, and you will have eternal life. You know. Guys, this life is going to be, you know, I shouldn't even mention this, but go research Fukushima in Japan. That's a nuke plant that was melting down since March of 2011, got hit by the tsunami. And find out how much, you know, find out what's going on with that. That's been dumping radiation to our air for over 5 years now. So you don't want to put your hope in this world, guys. You got to put your hope in God, and that's, you know, He's given us eternal life if you accept Him. And so I'm going to end the video here. Thanks for watching.